Chris, I've got you waiting to speak. What's your view? Did you hear? What did you think of what Annunziata had to say?
Hi. Yeah, I did hear it. It seems it's ridiculous, really, what they're saying. They're basically saying you've got to believe that no deal's going to be okay. There's no sort of factual evidence that's going to point to it being okay. You know, we've had these leaks. You've had the leak with Yellowhammer, etc., saying how potentially catastrophic no deal could be. But there's been no leaks of government documentation to say how successful it's going to be.
Well, yes.
Which you would think, we would have in the public arena by now. And you have people, your brother, Nigel Farage, they cite GATT24 as being a way for us to successfully trade after a no-deal situation. But, of course, if we're going to trade on GATT24 terms, then we need to have the bare bones of a free trade agreement with the European Union already in place. Now, that's not going to happen in a no-deal situation because of the Northern Irish border and because of the fact that we're going to withhold the 39 billion liabilities that we have.
Under no deal, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Possibly. I think that's one of the bargaining chips that have been thrown on the table at Biarritz. Yeah.
And let's also remember that 39 billion is a one-off. It's not 39 billion reoccurring to spend to help farmers, etc. It's just a ring-fenced figure of money, a finite amount of money that will eventually disappear. I mean, it seems to have been promised to pretty much everything, every public service, to farmers, to everything else. Our farming sector could be decimated if we allow products to enter the country tariff-free.
Can I ask, will your business or your livelihood be affected by no deal?
It's hard to tell. Possibly not. I'm a software developer, so it's. The thing is, obviously, my job depends on a successful economy.
Yeah. So you want? This is about non-tariff barriers for you more, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. I hope it won't impact me. I genuinely don't know. I mean, if the economy goes down, if we enter a recession, then it could potentially impact absolutely everybody in the country. The other thing is, of course, people cite the USA. They're on a verge, allegedly, they want a great free trade agreement with the UK, etc. Of course, but within a no-deal situation, Congress have already said, the majority of the people in Congress have said that there will be no ratification of a free trade agreement with
because the UK. It will get in the way of the Good Friday Agreement. We've got Ciaran who's in Paris. Ciaran, you go on. You speak.
Hi, Rachel.
I'm lost for words because this is the first time I've presented this show, and the screen went completely blank. Anyway, we're back.
I am absolutely against a no-deal Brexit. I do this every day of my life for my job. I travel over borders I've got an export transport business. I'm sitting in a lay-by in Paris, actually, on my way back to London after an urgent job this morning. I'm in Brussels tomorrow. I'm in Paris Wednesday. I've done 1 million miles in my job.
Amazing.
Pretty much.
What do you deliver? I mean, do you mind telling me?
I've delivered anything from food flavourings, which in a pure form are explosive, flammable, class 3, same as petrol. They come from abroad. They come to food processing plants in the UK. I delivered canisters of gas. I deliver exhibitions. I deliver aircraft slides for aircraft. Which
you must have a big van, very big van.
No. Normally, the smaller the van, the more important the job is. But it's really serious. When the Yellowhammer report came out, LBC actually reposted a clip of me ringing Jacob Rees-Mogg 2 years ago to explain pretty much what's going to happen to the borders when we leave the customs union. Now, the thing is, your previous caller, Mark, should really come on some work experience with me, because what he was talking about was really excruciating. The thing is that when things travel over borders, you need transit documents, or exit documents as they're called. Every single commercial consignment will need them. And every single truck or van will need to go and collect them from an agent. There's only 2 agents around the Dover port, which house 500 trucks, when you've got 12,000 in and out every day. And an average time of 30 to 40 minutes to collect them. And the thing that made me call in today, I've just driven all the way to Paris and back on a delivery. Okay. At the same time, a friend of mine is sitting on the Swiss border, not being allowed in with his urgent job that was supposed to be dropped off today because his papers are incorrect. He got there last night and he's still there. This is the reality. If people think salads drop from the sky onto their plate or on the supermarket shelves, you know, and the oranges come from Spain by a UFO.
By fairies.
They really need to look into this. Leaving the customs union, will see the very fast demise of the car plants because you can't get your car parts in and out. I've done car parts for 10 years. For instance, pallets of airbags.
You're talking about just-in-time supply chains.
But that's what I do.
That's going to be stymied. Can I just tell you one thing? I went to Paris and I sat next to an Australian on the train, and he said to me, he looked at me and he said, I can't understand what you're doing in Europe, why you're leaving Europe. He said, he's an Australian, and he said it's easier to drive from one end of Europe to the other than it is to drive across Australia, because Australia has a federal system where you have to stop when you get into different states and you have to present your paperwork. Like it's a hard border, like your friend who's stuck in Switzerland. At the moment, you can drive all over without stopping.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you can drive everywhere except with the exception, really, of Norway. If you're in a commercial vehicle, you have to stop. But they have much, much lower amounts of trucks that cross the border. The busiest border in Norway has got a capacity for 2,600 trucks a day, and it's pretty much running at capacity. The Norwegian border is easier to cross than the Swiss border, but you can still get stuck on it. I've actually been in what's known as a shed whilst getting the ferry.
They have those huge X-ray machines, don't they, when you drive in?
Well, it's more of if you've been to the Eurotunnel and you've got the big shed just beyond the UK border force, you know, and they'll ask you what you've got in the car, and if they think there's something untoward, they'll rip it to bits. So I've actually had the tyres taken off of my van in Norway.
Why?
Because I had an exhibition that I was taking over to Norway, and I was going to Oslo and Stockholm, and you have to fill out what's called a carnet. Now,
that means a notebook in French, I think.
Pretty much, you know. But you have to list every single thing, and every single thing has to have a value. Okay, so if you've got an exhibition, you have to list everything on it, and you have to put a value on it, even if it's valueless. It's something like a minimum of £1 or something, right? So it took my customer a week to compile this carnet because of the amount of stuff I had. Everything's valued at £1, £1. The first thing the customs guy said to me, he said, "What have you got in the van?" I said, "I've got a load of cardboard for an exhibition." Bang, in the shed. So I think it was 6-7 hours, locked me in a room. All I could hear was the drill coming out, the wheels coming off, absolutely everything, you know. And then they let you go once they're satisfied. But if there's any discrepancies on that carnet, then you could lose your load.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you heard, but Ian Dale, who's a presenter here, tore me apart for saying that if you liked admin and you like bureaucracy, you'll love a no-deal Brexit. Ciaran, can I just bring you to a point? What do you think the solution to this transport disruption of a no-deal Brexit and the restitution of a hard borders is going to be? What do you want? A no-deal, a deal, or a people's vote?
I want a people's vote. I was actually lucky enough to launch the people's vote in August last year, I think, on the back of my call to Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC, because I speak common sense and I actually share what I do in my job every day. It's not just about me, it's about how things come in and out of the country, you know, and what makes the economy work, what puts people in jobs, what makes production lines work. You know, it's really important. I'm out 3 times this week, backwards and forwards. It's average of 2 or 3 times a week. And
are you going to carry on trading if you have to go through these endless checks as you come in and out of the UK?
My current job would probably make it impossible. Right. It would probably make it impossible. I'm really, really, really worried. And I just want people that voted to leave to understand what it means to bring in so many imported goods from the continent that require no paperwork, only what's called a CMR. As soon as you have the introduction of customs borders at every single port, you're going to have gridlock. I said this 2 or 3 years ago, and it was brought up in the Yellowhammer, and I'm literally banging my head on a wall, Rachel.
I'm sorry to hear it, and I'm very sympathetic, and I hope that you can keep on trucking. Jason in Grays on the line. And Jason, what do you think? Are you happy about No Deal? How's it going to affect you if we get it?
It's going to be a disaster. I mean, no deal.
Dear, poor Des. Poor Des is going to switch off.
I was in Geneva the back end of last year at the World Trade Organization, and they said what Britain are trying to do with Brexit is the most complex and difficult thing any country has ever tried to do in the most difficult geopolitical times. And that's from the World Trade Organization, that everybody's saying, oh, they're going to save us, the WTO rules will be fine, it'll be great. But, I mean, if you look at the very systems that underpin the fabric of British society, like policing, for example, just one example. UK police forces use 32 different EU databases on a daily basis. Everything from the European arrest warrant to the Schengen information system, the European criminal investigation system, which gives real-time alerts to say a criminal is about to approach the British border. And this sort of stuff the police will no longer have access to.
Jason, I mean, we could talk all day about how difficult it is. Nick Ferrari always teases me when I say that leaving the EU with a deal is like taking the fresh eggs out of a baked cake. And he says, no, not your cake again. But we've got to keep going. We've got lots more calls. So thank you very much, Jason. I didn't realise that about the police force.